Hey everyone, welcome to an NFL video. This one we're going over my favorite plays for the Monday Night Showdown slate, the Bengals versus the Steelers. Hope you guys had a fantastic Sunday main slate. I did myself. We'll go over that in the recap video tomorrow, where I'll go over my main lineup, my cash game rankings, and then we'll take a little first look into week 5 and build a lineup together. Anyway, before we continue, if you could leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out, and I really appreciate it. I want to thank you guys for getting me over 2K subs last weekend. That was awesome. Thank you again. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at ChrisPinell16. And if you'd like access to any of the spreadsheets I build every single week and my Slack chat, links in the description below for my Patreon. And I believe that's just about it. I think we can get into the main part of this video. And also, I'm in a much better mood this week for the Monday Night Showdown video. Last week, the Browns blew it on Sunday Night Football. This week, they got the dub, so I'm ready to go for this video. Alright, so anyway, let's start off with James Conner. He's 10,600, the most expensive guy on the slate. And boy, has he not been good this season. He had 10 points week 1, 13 points week 2, saved the day with a touchdown week 2, and then 8 points week 3. These are not very good. This is not what we expected from James Conner. People were drafting him in the first round. So far, not so good. He's actually been one of the worst running backs in the league when it comes to breaking tackles and their elusive ratings according to PFF. But this should be his get-right game versus the Bengals. They're allowing 36.2 points per game to running backs this season, which is good for second worst in the league. And they're also allowing over 130 rushing yards to running backs, which is also atrocious. If he doesn't get it done in this matchup at home on prime time, it is time to panic on Conner. He's still seeing the majority of the snaps at a 68% clip compared to Samuels, and he's involved through the air as well, as he's seen at least 4 targets in each game. So like I said, he's been bad, but they got to get him going, and it's hard to find a better matchup than this one. So it's really put up or shut up tomorrow for James Conner, in my opinion. I do like him in the captain spot if you can find the salary for it. As running backs really just eaten versus Cincinnati so far. Carson got 25 week 1. 49ers running backs did very well week 2. And Frank Gore did fine last week with 16 points. So I do think this is going to be a pretty good game for James Conner. I don't know if you guys can see my dog. He's on my lap. Alright, sorry, he's getting repositioned. But yeah, like I said, like James Conner, he should have a fantastic game versus the Bengals. If he doesn't, major yikes for James Conner. Next guy up is Juju. We all love him. He's a great personality. He's 10,400, second most expensive guy in the slate. And I will say he saved his day last week with a 75-yard touchdown, because before that it was looking pretty darn bad. But that's what Juju does. He can make the big play. And really, he's not lived up to his lofty expectations so far this season. I mean, he hasn't been terrible. 13 points week 1, 13 points week 2, 17 points week 3. They're not awful, but we did expect more from Juju Smith-Schuster. A lot of people said he might possibly be the number 1 receiver on the season. I wasn't really believing into that, but I did think he had top 5 potential. I mean, he's got. I wouldn't say he's got top 5 talent, but he's got top 10 talent, and he's so young. I mean, eventually he'll get into the top 5, I think. But that's not important to this video. Still, he's the number 1 receiver on this team. He's heavily involved, as he had 100% snap count last week and owns a 50% weighted opportunity share in the season with a 26% market share. Since he really hasn't been awful versus wide receivers this season, mainly because you can just run the ball on them all day, but they're giving up 32.5 points to receivers, which is 7th best in the league, so that is pretty stingy. Now, this doesn't necessarily scare me off of Juju, as the guy's ultra talented and he can pay it off with one big play, as evident from last week. But I will say he gets a downgrade with Mason Rudolph at quarterback. We'd much rather have Ben Roethlisberger, the quarterback for him, but we don't have that. So if I have to pick between Conner and Juju, for the captain spot, or just really in general, if you have to, I'd really like to get both of them in your lineup. But if I have to pick between one, I will go with Conner, even though he's been bad. I just really like the matchup, and I really do think they try to get him going in this game. So that's my opinion on that. I really like both of them, though. I'd really try to get them in your lineup, both of them, if you can. So now we'll go with talk about Andy Dalton at 9,800. So has Dalton been awful this season? No, he's actually not. The offense is better than I think a lot of people thought it would be, with Zach Taylor running the show, and he's made it more made it more of a pass-friendly offense. Dalton's averaging 326 passing yards per game with over 40 pass attempts each game, so there's a lot of high volume there in the passing game. And we definitely like that for fantasy purposes, as the Bengals tend to find themselves in situations where they have to throw a lot. Pittsburgh is allowing over 23 points per game to the quarterback position, which is 8th worst, and allowing over 300 passing yards per game, which is a ton. They come in as road dogs, and while I don't think this is a blowout by any means, this should stay pretty close, but I don't think they're gonna find themselves in a position to grind out the clock with MIXON, so they should be passing quite a bit. And I do prefer him over Rudolph. Now, I'd be remiss to not mention his poor track history in primetime games. Andy Dalton is known for how bad he is in primetime games, But hey, I'm willing to take a shot with Andy Dalton. I don't hate the offense. I think they're going to be passing the ball a lot, and it's a beatable matchup. So this could be one of those games that Andy Dalton does fine in primetime. And next guy is Mason Rudolph, the other quarterback, filling in for Ben Roethlisberger this season. So I don't like him as much as Mr. Dalton, but he is a quarterback, and they tend to be more of the safer plays on showdown slates, since he's giving up 20 points per game to the position, which is middle of the road, and about 245 passing yards per game. Steelers do have the higher implied total and are at home, so there's definitely potential for him to succeed in this matchup, and the Cincy defense really is no concern to me. But I do think Dalton will see more passing volume and outscore Rudolph, in my opinion. They're both fine plays, but personally, if I had to pick one, I'm going with Andy Dalton, even though it's primetime. Then next guy is, well, it's AJ Green, but he's not playing. Tyler Boyd. I actually really like Tyler Boyd this week. He's 9,200. He's one of my favorite plays on the slate, as he's the wide receiver one on this offense with AJ Green being out. And he's been rock solid to start the season. He scored 14 points week 1, 25 points week 2, 12 points week 3. Not too bad. He leads the team in target share at 25.6% and draws a fantastic matchup versus the Steelers, who are giving up a massive 39.3 points per game to slot wide receivers, which is dead last in the league. Boyd operates mainly out of the slot, and he should eat in this game, and I have no problem rolling him out in your captain spot as well to save some dough. I really like Tyler Boyd in this game, and I think he can get 20 points. I really like Tyler Boyd in this matchup. If he gets into the end zone for the first time this season, he's going to have a pretty big game, I think. And he's seeing double-digit targets in all 3 weeks so far, so really like Tyler Boyd a ton. He's a captain candidate for me heading into this showdown slate. And then Joe Mixon, 8,800. I was kind of surprised when I first saw his salary, which seemed a little low for a showdown slate, especially coming off his first good game of the season where he got 17 points. But hey, I can't control the salaries. It's just what we're given. He gets a really nice matchup versus the Steelers, though, who are giving up 32.5 points per game to running backs, which is 4th worst in the league. Only problem is Gio Bernard is on the field more than I would really like him to be, as he saw over 40% of the snaps last week, while Joe Mixon had at 57%. So he's still the lead dog there, and he's going to demand the most volume as well. Gio Bernard has really not seen too much volume compared to Mixon, even though Mixon really hasn't seen a ton of volume either. He only had 6 attempts week 1, but he also got hurt week 2. Coming in the game with an injury, out 11 attempts. Week 3, he's more healthy, got 15 attempts, 2 targets. So he's still going to see 15 to 20 touches in this game. It's a favorable matchup for him. Before last week, though, he was horrendous, not even averaging 2 yards a carry, but he kind of broke out last week with 17 points off a receiving touchdown. This is a great matchup for him, but I'm not so sure he pays off his price tag relative to other players on this slate. So, if it's coming down to like Joe Mixon or Tyler Boyd, I am by far going with Tyler Boyd, even though it's a good matchup for Mixon, but I still think he's a fine play at 8,800. Next guy is John Ross at 8,400. And so the first 2 weeks, he went absolutely nuts. He had 37 points week 1 versus Seattle, which I will say that one of those touchdowns was off a horribly mistimed jump from a defender, but it still counts, but it was a large chunk of his points. And then versus San Francisco, he saved the day with a 66-yard touchdown with less than a minute remaining in garbage time. Not that I'm complaining, though. I may have played him in cash that week. But fluke or not, he still flashed his upside, but he also showed his downside last week with only 3 points. But that was in a very tough matchup versus Buffalo. He's been heavily involved, and he's produced so far, so that's not in question. The Steelers are also allowing 44.9 points per game to receivers, which is 8th worst in the league. I do like the passing attack here for the Bengals, so John Ross is on my radar, but because he can blow the slate open on one play, as we've seen like 3 times so far this season. I prefer Boyd, but he doesn't have the ceiling Ross does, but Ross doesn't have the floor, in my opinion, that Boyd does. So again, don't mind Ross. I do like the Bengals passing offense and the passing game in this game. Next guy is Deontay Johnson at 6,600. So he saw 6 targets last week, and there's no more Moncrief in the. Moncrief's gone pretty much. He didn't play last week, so he's going to be seeing the field consistently from here on out. He ended up getting a touchdown grab late in the game last week to get 14 fantasy points. I'm not that excited about him this week, but if you have interest in Rudolph, you're going to have to pair him up with more than just Juju to get an edge, because obviously Juju's going to be chalk and Rudolph's going to be chalk as well. So Johnson should be a little bit lower owned. He does have a consistent role in this offense, especially with the new QB, so he is in play. Pretty much just have to hope he hits a touchdown or gets a long play, because I really don't see him being too heavily involved in this game. Next guy is James Washington at 6,200. It's kind of like the same thing as I just talked about. Although I will say, I'm not sure you guys know this or not, but if you do, I mean, I'm sure most of you do, but if not, Washington did play with Rudolph at Oklahoma State in college, so there is chemistry already built in here. But he just did disappoint last week. He only had 2 catches for 14 yards on 5 targets. Again, really, it's just the same reasoning as Johnson. You can take a shot on him if it fits your lineup build, or if you just want to pair him up with Rudolph, but he's not a core play for me by any means. Next guy is not these 3 or 4. Vance McDonald is hurt, so that leaves us with Tyler Eifert at 5,200. So it was a tough matchup last week versus Buffalo, where he only had 1 catch for 18 yards, which, that sucks. But before that, he had 5 targets each week, but not much to show for it. If you're playing him, you're just hoping he gets into the box with his more than likely low yardage total. It's not a fantastic matchup versus the Steelers, who are just middle of the road versus tight ends, only giving up 12 points a game. Although they did give up 2 touchdowns to Disley last week, so there is, there's upside here, but it's not a ton with Tyler Eifert. You're just pretty much hoping he gets into the end zone 1 or 2 times, and then he'll pay off his salary. Auden Tate, he's actually pretty interesting. He's 4,800, and you're probably asking, who the heck is Auden Tate? Yeah, I get it, but this dude saw 10 targets last week and caught 6 of them for 88 yards. He also saw his snap count go up from 36% week 2 to 89% last week. So I actually have quite a bit of interest in him at this price tag, and I do prefer the Cincinnati air attack in this game. Now, do I think he sees 10 targets again? No, probably not, but only 4,800. I'll take the snap count and volume at 4,800. So I think Auden Tate is definitely in play. He's a nice salary saver, and he does have upside. I mean, last week he scored 13 points, and that's hard to do at 4,800 for most of these guys on this slate. So definitely have interest in Auden Tate. Steelers defense. I mean, if you're going to buy into the narrative, the primetime Dalton narrative, I think he absolutely stinks the game up, then the Steelers defense is in play at home as favorites. Addition of Mika Fitzpatrick is definitely a boost as well, and they haven't really been terrible this year on defense in terms of fantasy points. They created a lot of turnovers last week versus San Francisco. So I don't love them because I'm on the side of the Cincinnati air attack. So I wouldn't obviously want to play the Steelers defense because that doesn't make any sense in terms of correlation. But they're in play if you are in the narrative of, Dalton sucks. Nick VANNETT, 4,200. He is going to pretty much be the starter with Vance McDonald being out. He just got traded there from Seattle. Like I said, no Vance dance, so that means VANNETT will be thrusted into a starting role on this offense. We've yet to see him play on the Steelers, so we can't be totally sure on how much he'll actually do or what he will be in this offense, but Vance did see 13 targets in 3 weeks, so I'd expect something like that for VANNETT, maybe cut that down a little bit, because I do think Vance is more talented. So if you average that out on a per-game basis, that's kind of what I'd see VANNETT doing, minus a little bit. So nothing too exciting, you're just hoping he falls into the end zone pretty much, kind of the same with Eifert. Bengals defense, no thank you. They're just not good. They're on the road. They're not favorites. They're the underdog. So not really a fan of that. GIOVANI at 3,800. So he's getting snaps. He was on the field for over 40% of the time last week, but they haven't really amounted to anything. Like I said earlier, he had 7 rushing attempts week 1, 6 rushing attempts week 2, 3 last week. He's really pretty much done nothing with them. 8 points week 1, 2 points week 2, 3 points week 3. I mean, it's a good matchup, but if you're playing him, you're basically hoping Joe Mixon gets hurt so he gets added run, but you really can't bank on that unless you're making like 150 lineups. So really no interest in GIOVANI. You're just really hoping he gets a cheap touchdown or Mixon gets hurt, which we never hope for injuries. Kickers are what they are. If they pull a Will Lutz, they'll be in the winning lineup, but if not, I mean, they're going to get you 7 points, just depending on what the game does. I mean, this could turn into a kicker fest. These offenses are not great. The defenses aren't good. So I could see it turning into a lot of field goals. So the kickers are definitely in play. Jaylen Samuels, not too interested in Jaylen Samuels. He hasn't really done much this season. He's not going to get consistent work. James Conner is the guy. If I have a ton of interest in James Conner, I'm probably not going to play Jaylen Samuels because I would be hoping he doesn't have a good game because that's going to cut into James Conner. So it wouldn't make sense for me to like Samuels. Probably going to be passing on him. Dante Moncrief is absolute trash. But he's not going to play anyway. No Snell. Switzer, no. Uzama, maybe. I mean, week 1, he was fine. Week 2, nothing. Week 3, nothing. You really don't. Although I will say, I said the same thing about Jimmy Graham on Thursday Night Showdown. He's done absolutely nothing for the past 2 weeks. Then he balled out. So maybe Uzama balls out. I hope not, but not really in play for me. Erickson, no. Williams, no. Harris, no. Pirine, no. Gentry, really, it's just pretty much gross after that. So, the lowest I would really go is Uzama. After that, I would not do it. So, for my core plays, I definitely like Tyler Boyd. I like James Conner, and I like Juju Smith-Schuster. Yeah, I know that's obviously very chalky, and it's nothing special, but those are my 3 favorite plays. So, let's say we plug one of these guys into the captain spot. We'll see how much salary it leaves us. So, if we plug James Conner in, that's going to leave us with 6,800 left. Say I want to get my Juju in, and I want to get Tyler Boyd in. It's going to leave me with 4,800 left. So now I probably have to use a kicker, which leaves me, so let's say we go with 5,500 left, and then that's going to, say I'm going to throw in AUDEN TATE. That gives me 6,300. I don't love it. You can plug in James Washington. Again, I'm just playing around. I have not made one lineup yet for Showdown. Just playing around here. So that's one way to go. If you want to use Tyler Boyd, you're going to save about 2K, and that definitely opens it up. So then we can throw in James Conner, we can throw in Juju, maybe we want to throw in DALTON. That one's only going to leave us 2,700. Don't love that. So maybe you want to get rid of DALTON and you want to just go with straight receivers. You can throw in Tate. That's going to leave you 5,200 left. You throw in a kicker, like say Boswell. It's going to leave you 6,800 left. You're pretty much left with one of the Steelers wide receivers again. I mean, it's going to be a pretty popular way to go with it. So if you want to get different, maybe you throw a kicker in the captain spot. Maybe you throw a defense in the captain spot. That's totally up to you. I'm not in love with any of these defenses. But my 3 favorite plays on these slate are Tyler Boyd, Juju, and Conner. And that's pretty much going to be it for this video. Also, I'm going to enjoy the game. Anyway, guys, I hope this was helpful for you guys. If it was, remember to leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out, and I really appreciate it. Follow me on Twitter at ChrisPenal16. And I'll see you guys in the next video.